Hello, Internet. It's time for another Wednesday's serial. I've had a really crappy week, and I kind of had a crappy week of comics, but I'm going to go through it in the order that I read them, and talk about a little something else I read at the end, and yeah, hope everything's going better for you guys, but blah. And I just want to preempt, I know Batgirl came out this week. It wasn't in my poll, and I'll read it later. It wasn't that I dropped it or anything, it's that it wasn't there, so I can't tell you about it. So this week I decided to read my comics in order of least interested in to most interested in, to kind of see where that lines up, and I feel like I'm going to be doing that for a few weeks because I feel like I kind of want to make room for some new comics or shift things up a little bit. But I've also had some light weeks, this week being only 4, should have been 5 comics, and normally I look at more like 6 to 8, so maybe I just need to be pulling more anyways. But I started out with Batman, which I wasn't super excited about because 0 Year's been kind of a drag. The last issue I did like though, and I felt like it was hope, but it wasn't necessarily enough hope to make 0 Year good, but hopefully I thought, you know, it could ride up. But this issue played to the origin again and had some weird visuals, and they worked in a really bad callback to The Dark Knight. They played with the goddamn Batman with the censored. It was just some dumb jokes, and it was a lot of like Batman Arcana popped in for those of you who are looking for it, I guess, and it felt a little painful to read. There was kind of a shock in this moment where things don't necessarily get resolved and things start to go downhill, but it was just hitting me. This is another $5 issue that's tons of pages. Not saying it's not worth it, but it doesn't resonate the way a lot of the past Batman stories has. And this just felt like another dragging issue. There's another dropout fight with some stuff, and some things are kind of tied together, but it just, I don't know. I think at this point I just want this story to end so we can move on to the next thing, because I've been so drugged down with this that I don't care about how this story ends anymore. I just want it to end so that we can get back to some good comics, because I don't feel this is good comics. This issue of Hawkeye was a giant fuck you to the readers, and so fuck you for doing this. This is, I know there's a little more to it, and there's some allegory, and there's a point, woohoo, woohoo, woohoo. I don't fucking care. Do not pick up this issue if you have any way not to. This is more than worthless. This is the worst issue of Hawkeye yet. I get that they're trying to do something clever and haha. I don't care. This is gross. Then we have Deadpool 25 or 25.0, whatever. And then there's the I think tacos are #1 subtitle, which is, you know, Deadpool making fun of the new Marvel gimmicky thing coming on. Great, that's what Deadpool's there for in some ways. And I gotta say, because I've heard people talk about this, the cover design, the way that they promenade the #1 is a little annoying, but the idea behind it that the subtitle, this arc, is #1, and but we still have the issue number 25, great. That's good. That's a very happy medium. And if you have a problem with that, I think you're crazy, because you're having your cake and you're eating it too, and it's perfectly fine. They just need to not destroy the cover with the #1. So, this issue is Deadpool dealing with Crossbones finally. It's really funny when they start out because they're drinking at a bar, and Crossbones is like, is that story about Korea true? He's like, I left out some parts, but mostly. And it's just this crazy catharsis thing. You see where the Preston thing ended up, and it kind of answers that question without just hitting you over the head with it. And most of this issue is just a drop-down brawl, and just which normally is kind of annoying, but it's kind of a catharsis for this comic. I mean, this is an okay issue. It's not bad, it's not great, it's good. But there's a lot of cool stuff in here. There's a lot of interesting little jokes, like Sabretooth smelling and Deadpool being like, he's a fight, he'll be weak, and I take him, and just seeing him wailing on Crossbones, no more, no more, and he just whistles and walks away. Sabretooth not wanting to get into a fight. That's an amazing joke that you couldn't do with like a random comic or anything. That was just a great moment. And there's some cool stuff, and we have set up a need for Deadpool to move on to the next thing, so he is off, and that's where our issue ends. I want to, not that it really matters, but we get a lot of play up, and they mention that get ready for the most important 27th issue of any comic ever, because Deadpool's getting married. So that's coming up. I don't know, this was fun and good, and maybe a bit more of what people expect from Deadpool than what I expect from Deadpool, but this was just kind of nice to have, and kind of a catharsis, and kind of a point to show that this, you know, the last 24 issues have kind of been one thing, and now we're moving on, and I'm kind of excited that we're doing that. But I mean, what's happened with those past issues isn't just being thrown away either. It looks like there's some ties and some stuff to bring it back, but it's set up so that when things are called back, it's organic, and that's really kind of exciting and makes it a lot better than some of the other shit I've been reading. So there you go. And then clearly the comic I was most excited for was Ninja Turtles, and this is the end of the Northampton arc, and oh my goodness, the first page of this comic alone just had me. Like, I was like, oh! And it's like, in a way, like, other things had to fall out, but I mean, like, this arc was over with that page, and Northampton Part 4, and just, boom, Leo's back. Oh my god. And it felt good reading that. Like, it was just like there, and it's this explosive panel, and it's not a splash page, it's just a bigger panel, and it's just, oh, it's great. And they have another great scene with Mikey later for an action beat, which I'm just going to go ahead, because I've already spoiled this issue for you anyways, by talking about the first page. That's how momentous this is. There's a page where this bird assassin is coming and striking at April's mother, who just kind of wandered into all this. And for a second, I was honestly like, oh my god. Like, we see people die all the time with a certain amount of resonance, but I mean, here she's never even met the Turtles people. Like, she is purely innocent of this situation. Like, very much just a bystander, but not just, you know, Joe Schmo. Like, we have some attachment here. And I was like, it was something where I was like, if they kill her, she's not coming back. But I just had this moment, and it was like, oh my god, like, I would, like, feel very disheartened if they killed her, and I was, like, actually worried about the character, which is something that hasn't happened to me in a comic, and I can't tell you how long. Like, this was something new, and I was very worried about that. And then it was all that, then you flip the page, and it is a splash page, and one that is wholeheartedly deserving of just Mikey coming in and saving the day in just the most, like, wow way. And it was just like, that was amazing. You took the moment, then you just you just collapsed and took care, and it was just like, yes, all right. And it was just, it was so well played. And so I don't know, and more to the issue, and now for the return to New York, which, if you know your Turtle lore, I mean, if you understand, like, really, the entire Turtle series up to this point has been a very elongated, with a lot of other elements, still telling of the first Turtles movie, and we're just, I mean, that plays the old comics too, but they're telling that story arc, and now we're getting ready for the return to New York. So basically they would have just had been heading back from the woods. In this case, they're playing more of the farm and that angle more from the old comics, but I mean that's where it's going. This is an arc that's been told a few times in various Turtle lore, and now we're having it again, but so you kind of see the pieces and the moving, but I'm kind of wondering where it's going, because now we have a return and a little bit of that, and then at the end of that is usually where Shredder dies. And I'm kind of curious to see if where we're going with this run, if Shredder dies. So, could be a thing. They could play it very differently as well. So, there you go. Also, they had an interview in here with Ross Campbell, which I thought was interesting because I don't think I could name an artist right now that's done more for raising a book and making it better than Ross Campbell. So he's been they talk about him having been a fan of the Turtles basically forever and how he kind of discovered the characters. They talked a bit about his process, and there's nothing particularly unique there. Does thumbnails to get them approved, basically, even though he doesn't like doing it, then blows them up and does the pages and all that, which is standard, or fairly standard from what I understand across most comic artists. And then they talk about what he prefers to draw than what he doesn't. There's some interesting stuff there. He said basically he likes drawing more somber, sadder turtles, and he feels like a lot of the quieter moments is where the book really shines. He also really likes drawing Alplex, which makes sense. I think he's basically the only artist to draw her for more than, you know, a couple panels here or there, and he did her intro issue, and so that. I just found it really interesting that he likes drawing the more somber stuff, because most artists, you know, want more dynamic stuff and they don't like the more talking heads kind of thing. But when he also talks about where he thinks, where he'd like to see more Turtles stories are, he said he'd like to do a Valentine's Day issue, and he'd like to do a lot of this more quiet moment stuff. And that's really fascinating to me, because it's been proven in this last arc that he's able to do stuff with that. But pulling back and seeing it just from like an artist, like just the artist on it, talking about that, that's so incredible to me and makes me think he has to be so much more of a talent if he sees those moments that really makes the comic shine and isn't so much like, I just want to draw, you know, the most dynamic stuff. And I mean, clearly, I mean, he has to enjoy that too, but I mean, to say that he wants to go there as well, then in some ways he prefers it, is obviously just fascinating, because I've been rambling, going in circles about that. He also talked about how the one character he doesn't particularly like to draw is Splinter. He's played around with it and he can't find a way to make the character work the way he quite wants, which I found interesting. I kind of like the way he does Splinter personally, and I've seen other people that do it more in a way that I prefer Splinter sometimes, but you know, most notably like Eastman. But I just thought that was interesting that he hasn't been able to find a way that that character works, and he's been talking about how he puts more of his style and more of like acting into the comic as he's been developing, and I don't know. And the other really interesting thing that I thought some of you might like to check this out, since some of you've been a lot more of you have been checking out the comic recently, is he apparently has his own webcomic as well, which is incredible to me. That comic is shadoweyes.net, just one word. I plan on checking it out soon. I'd recommend, if you like this guy's stuff, to go check it out. There you go, free webcomic to go check out from an actual, you know, like, amazing comic talent. Not to say that there aren't others, and please, if you know of other webcomics that, you know, you guys read, you know, a lot of the comics that I like, please let me know, because I'd like to know more about that. And then really quickly, I want to mention I'm diving into BPRD. I won a eBay lot for an incredible deal, really. And then I've just been checking out. I'm only through the first trade. I'm on to the second trade, and I'll keep going. But I've been avoiding the Mignolaverse basically for a long time, because even though they have different artists and talent on it, it kind of holds a tone and kind of an artistic through line through most of what I saw, at least, avoiding it mostly. And just this trade was incredible to me. I mean, the storytelling is just fairly unparalleled in a lot of ways, and just the layouts on the page, it's very comic booky and gritty, but it's never just the grid, and it's just almost fascinating to see the layouts and where they do small things to make things kind of explode even in smaller frames. And it's just it's an amazing comic to take in, and part of the reason I never really hearkened into that whole thing is I remember seeing the Hellboy first movie, really, and it just feeling just kind of like another goofy comic, and oh boy, World War II, just something I never really get into, but kind of realizing there's some elements there that play to the pulpiness of it, and that reading it as a comic is so much more engaging. I know BPRD, not Hellboy, but just incredible stuff, and I can't believe I kind of kept myself away from it for a long time. So I'm probably going to be trying to delve into more of that. I have plenty of trades to just read right here. So yeah, there you go.